Good morning, everybody, and welcome back to another episode of Coffee with the Critters, where we live stream every Sunday morning at 9:30 a.m. Eastern, unless otherwise noted. As in this morning, I will live stream at 9 a.m. if I have a guest, and we have a guest on today. For those that may be new, my name is Laura Joseph, owner of the Animal Behavior Center. We're an international educational center where we teach people all over the world how to empower animals through training and empower the caretakers, the people that care for the animals. You can find out more information on our website, theanimalbehaviorcenter.com, where you will see our services, our memberships, our webinars. And you can also find our events on our website or on our Facebook page. There it is on our website. And speaking of events, we have two upcoming events. One starting next month, our parrot enrichment workshop. This will be the third time that we've had this workshop. Last year, I think we had it in October and it sold out. We also have another workshop coming up in May. This has been a big hit. We've only given this twice before, Understanding Behavior Through Working with Birds. This workshop focuses on using applied behavior analysis and working with birds, and it's not necessarily designed for people who work with birds. I originally designed it for people who work with every other animal and wanting to learn how to know and do better through working with birds. That's coming up in May. You can also find more of my work on my blog, and I will be getting ready to make another entry, probably work on that tomorrow. You can also join our email newsletter list. You can find that on our website, and you can find it here on our Facebook page. You can also email me. You can get in touch with me at Lara, Lara, at theanimalbehaviorcenter.com. So for those that are new, our work focuses on understanding behavior through using B.F. Skinner's laws of behavior with a variety of species of animals. And with that said, I'm getting ready to bring on Robin Sullivan, co-owner of the Leather Elves. I'm going to go ahead and bring you on, Robin. And if you didn't see our last live stream together, that was, you can go on Robin's page, right, Robin? Let me go ahead and bring you on.
Good morning.
Good morning. You can find this is this on your personal page, the Leather Elves Facebook page?
So this is on the Leather Elves Facebook page, and all the live streams are archived. So this will be on there. You can just go to the video section and pull this one up. And it was fun. It was a good talk.
Yeah, we talked for an hour. There was a lot of good information in that talk. As we get started, if you saw what I was doing here behind the scenes, I got to really concentrate. So I'm going to go ahead and introduce you, Robin. I'll read your bio. For those that may not know Robin, she is the co-owner of the Leather Elves, a company that designs and manufactures enrichment devices for animals in human care. Since 2000, Robin has consulted at zoos in the United States, Canada, Australia, New Zealand, and Holland, and has distributed enrichment products worldwide. Robin regularly speaks at parrot clubs, providing workshops, teaching ways to create a stimulating environment. She also develops new products for parrots that will stimulate naturalistic behavior. Robin has published articles on enrichment in national and international publications. Robin hosts Friday Night Flock Talk on the Leather Elves Facebook page. Robin is also joined by guests and offers live mini webinars on a variety of avian topics, from enrichment to behavior to conservation efforts. She has also produced DVDs titled Enriching Your Parrot's Life and Get Your Bird Back. Robin is a past state coordinator for the American Federation of Aviculture, and she is past president of the International Association of Avian Trainers and Educators. So, with that being said, welcome, Robin.
Thank you very much.
um, so, we picked this topic because a lot of people, I think, struggle with this. I titled it Understanding Behavior, but it also is when you see a behavior from an animal sitting, standing, perching, whatever in front of us, what does it mean? And how do we figure out what this behavior means? I know we chatted a little bit before starting this live stream. Is there a particular place you want to begin talking? I know we talked about anthropomorphism.
So, I mean, I think, like you say, when you're looking at a behavior, it's a matter of stepping back and really looking honestly, I think is what I would call it. That it's, it's not, oh, look at that. Oh, I think that's this. I think it might be this. I think that's this. And and I've done it, and I'm sure you've done it. When you're looking at a behavior, you come up with 75 different that could be's. And then you have to kind of pare it down and be like, okay, what am I seeing? What is this animal? Is that a natural behavior for this animal? Is that something that is, brand new and I've never seen it before? And there are so many factors, I think. And I think that's important for people to think about.
Yeah. You mentioned observation is key. Like when we first are asked to train an animal, even if it's a species we've never worked with before, definitely an individual we've never worked with before, a lot of times I'll begin by first, is this animal in an environment that it's familiar with? Is it unfamiliar with this environment? And I just sit back and watch, and I take my time observing what's it moving towards, what's it moving away from, what's it interacting with. If it's a bird, what's the feather placement? Is there vocalization happening with it? Those are probably key points that I think a lot of people, Robin, do you find just jump in and want to start interacting immediately?
I think so. And the other thing, as you're talking, I think is preconceived notions that we go in and we're like, okay, this is what I'm going to see from this animal. This is what I'm supposed to see from this animal versus I think you have to kind of go in and say, this is what I'm seeing, and kind of step out of your comfort zone of what you think should be happening or what you expect to happen and go from there. And I think, it's also a matter of observing and it's being really aware of the smallest behaviors, because I think sometimes those are the most telling. You can get the big grand behavior and go, okay, that's clear. I get what that is. But at the same time, looking for the lack of any big behavior. And that all comes from that observation piece. Are we going to, and it's not a matter of, okay, oh, all right, that's what he's doing. I'm going to create this big plan and I'm going to do all this stuff. And because wouldn't that be nice if we could do that? But it's not realistic.
Not realistic. I'm jotting down notes as we're talking to bring up these topics. Another thing I have learned I have to be very careful with is if an animal comes to me that it's been in another organization for a period of time, and the information that the people give with that, I have learned to kind of stash that information in the background and then just really watch the animal and let the animal tell me. Because a lot of times people are like, oh, this animal likes this is what they don't like. And when I start observing and training, I was like, that is not at all what I'm seeing.
Right. Well, and I think that happens a lot of times, especially with animals that are rehomed or that come from a situation that wasn't working out. And both of us, come across that quite often. And I think it's a matter of sometimes in a not so great situation, there are profiles that come up, for lack of a better term, for that animal. And you get the animal and you're like, I'm not seeing any of that. and you have to be aware, you have to watch and say, and not kind of, I think we wait for the behaviors that we heard about. If you don't kind of put that to the side, you have to compartmentalize. Okay, this is the information I have. It's good that I have it because I know what some people's past experience has been with this animal. But now you need to build that relationship with that animal yourself. It's not about, if I were to get an animal from your center, so, for whatever reason, I could say, okay, this was Laura's experience with this animal. This is how things went there. But now we're in a different environment, a different set of people, a different schedule, and it's going to probably present differently. And we need to be aware of that.
Yeah, one of the things I learned when I first started studying applied behavior analysis, you talking about environmental changes, is, and I try to tell people this, and I always say one of the biggest mistakes people make in learning about the animal and understanding the animals, they take too big of steps. You want to teach a nose target. The animal doesn't understand a target stick. You may not begin with the target. But when you're talking about if you taking an animal from the center, and the fact that it may behave differently with you than with me, one of the first things I learned is if anything changes in that animal's environment, um, you're training a whole new behavior. Like when I'm telling people, so you want to teach a dog or a bird for a voluntary nail trim, the zygodactyl feet on a parrot. If you've trained this, how to trim this toenail, when you move to this one, you're training a whole new behavior.
Sure.
And a lot of people will jump to, well, I've trained it here, so I'm definitely going to be able to get that little back one. Good luck.
And that's, I mean, our animals, no matter what species you're working with, they're very aware. They're every little thing, every nuance that we may just take for granted. It may be, this is on the table all the time. Okay, well, I know that. Now I bring in a new animal. What is that's on the table? It's something completely new. In a new environment, you kind of have to, I always suggest going back to square one, going back to that very basic behavior that you're going to start working on. And maybe you just whip through it. Maybe, and you've got to take your cues from that animal. So you're watching, okay, what's the behavior you're showing me? What does that signify? What does that mean? And then where do we go from there? So it's not, I'm gonna jump in there and I'm gonna teach him how to do this, and he's gonna do wings up. And if you're talking about a bird, he's gonna do wings up and he's gonna do a target, and I'm gonna be able to direct him to another, do an A to B. That's a lot. So, and some animals will, pick it right back up again and go. Some are gonna need to start again. They need the remedial course. And I just think that what you said about the steps, I think baby steps applies, small approximations, so that it's not, and let the animal dictate how fast or how slow, how quickly or how slowly you go. It's not about, and I'm sure you've run into this at facilities. I've got to get this trained by, next Tuesday because we're going to start, exhibits, or we're going to start demonstrations. Okay, that's great, but we've got to see if we can get there by next Tuesday.
Yeah, I get that thrown at me a lot. Hey, Laura, this is what we're going to be doing. Can you get this trained by this date? And I'm like, I don't know. I need to start working with the animal. And sometimes I have to go back and say, that's not happening. Mm-hmm. And because the animal tells me that's not happening, but we can do this instead. Mm-hmm. There's a lot of education moments there. And a lot of times I get told, I was even told this last week. I was talking to somebody with USDA and they're like, you must have so much patience to do the work you do. And I was like, actually, I don't. I'm a very impatient person, but I've learned to break down behaviors so finite that when I see just a muscle movement, bingo, that's my reinforcer. That's what I'm looking for.
Mhm.
And that's what keeps me, well, one of the things that keeps me doing what I do.
Well, and I think too in a companion parrot setting, especially, people want that relationship to happen. They want, I go get this bird, whether it's from, a rescue, a breeder, a store, whatever, and I bring it home. Well, I want to see it do all these cool things, and I want it to be comfortable in my house, and I'm trying to get all this behavior to happen, and we don't always do that observation piece. And then what happens is it's this kind of snowball effect that we start going down a bad slope because
Yeah.
now we're expecting all these things, we're not seeing them, and now we're getting behaviors that we, aberrant behavior that we don't want to see. And it's because we didn't take that time to be, you know, to observe the slightest nuance, like you say, a muscle move. And I've said to people, if he looks at you, if you're trying to get an animal to target or an animal to come, move closer to you, and he looks at you in the beginning, that's a win. That's reinforce that, because that animal, it may be a huge hurdle for that animal to just make eye contact with you.
Yeah. Yeah. You mentioned something that I just jot down a note for. Here's an example of where people take too big of steps. People are like, but I just want to be able to make contact. And I'll say, have you built your list of reinforcers yet?
Mhm,
Positive reinforcers? No. Well, then what do you have to work with? If you want to ask the animal to do something, you've got nothing to deliver a reinforcer to give the reason why the animal may want to do it again.
mhm.
Um,
Well, and I think too, Laura, along with that is, as humans, I think we feel that we are inherently reinforcing.
yeah,
So, you're asking a different species to come to you and spend time with you and allow you to touch it. And that may not be reinforcing for them. And I want to say probably not be reinforcing for them. Years and years ago, I went to a dolphin research center, not the dolphin research center, but a dolphin research center. And they let you get in the water with the dolphins, which in retrospect, probably not the best choice I ever made. And they were dolphins that came in off the canal. So that was into an enclosure. But one of the things they said, they did a little talk beforehand. And one of the things they said was, you are now going into their home. And it's like if you were in your apartment and somebody came in, moved all your furniture around, and sat down right next to you on the couch that you didn't know. Um, it would be super uncomfortable. And we're asking, they might as well be an alien from outer space, and we're asking them to come and spend time with us. And I think
and touch you.
that's, yeah, yeah. I mean, it's, I don't know, it might be okay in some cases, but depends how tall, dark, and handsome that alien is. But you just want that relationship, but you've got to work for it.
Yeah, you've got to work for it, and the animal has to understand, what does this mean? Because some animals, where physical contact is an aversive,
Mhm,
so, and you can train it. You don't have to ever be able to touch an animal to train it. So sometimes I just train through off contact.
mhm,
Um, and that's a lot of times where I pulled two photos, Robin, just to kind of show uh, examples.
mhm,
Like, so with the Timberwolves I started working with, people are like, "Are you going to game with him?" And I was like, "Nope." And even people tell me, "But they're not going to hurt you." I've heard it. I've heard people say they're not going to hurt you. I was like, "I don't know this animal. This animal does not know me. So where do I begin?" So in the back of my mind, I have goals that I'd like to reach,
mhm,
where we eventually have protective contact, or if I go in, what behaviors do I want trained? Before I go in, if I can even get in, I don't even know if I want to get in. Um, I train via off contact and protective contact behaviors I need and want from the animal before it moves to the next step. And I won't move to the next step until I know for sure this is exactly the behavior I'm seeing.
Yeah.
Because this is Jenks and this is exactly what he's going to look like when you get ready to walk close to him. So
And I think that brings up some, when you said, you've got the goals in the back of your head, when we're talking about animals that we're not familiar with, that we've never worked with, and, you bring a bird into your home, you get a bird from that's been a former pet somewhere else. And I think it's about, you don't know what that history is. I mean, in some cases, we're lucky enough that we do have a history of where that animal has been, what they've experienced, what their reactions have been. And like we said before, it's still dependent on a new environment. But there are birds that will never, you said, there are animals that you never have to touch. And you and I, many years ago, were when we did the Parrot Lovers cruise, and there was a woman, and I remember saying that I was more comfortable reading the body language on a macaw than on a cockatoo. And I said that, and this woman decided she was never going to handle her cockatoo ever again because I said that. And I want to be clear with people that it's not that, you shouldn't because you can't. It's, there are better reasons to not. Does that make sense? So it's not about, I'm not having contact with this animal because, I can't, it's not safe. It's not safe for that animal. Does that,
yep.
and I think we need to be aware of what's the gain, what's the value from having physical contact with an animal? What's the value for that animal? Is there any? Like you said, is it an aversive? And so when you're creating your, plan of how you want to move forward, what you want to accomplish, and always being aware that that may change, I think it's important to think about why am I doing this?
Yep. Because then you'll find out if it's for your gain or for the animals.
Right, right.
Something else, and you talking about this cockatoo, um, I always tell people, if I'm nervous, I don't do it. Because if I'm nervous, it means I don't have enough information yet. And I think this may go well, but there's a chance that it may not. And once it doesn't go as planned, now you have counter conditioning to do. You want to pair yourself with the delivery of the positive reinforcers. And when you pair yourself with the aversive, something the animal doesn't like, you are shooting yourself in the foot so bad, because now you have to retrain all of
Mhm.
this. And if you can, and I was just talking about this in my newsletter yesterday about training young animals. I, if in my work, I rarely get to train young
Mhm.
animals. I'm training the older ones that everybody has already trained to do these behaviors that I now need to counter condition. We just got in a very, very young lemur that I'm starting to work with. And if I mean, I salivate when I see a young, fresh mind.
Yeah.
I'm like, whoa, we can really set this animal up for success. Um, and I have found when you can train an animal that young, you can set them up for learning all kinds of foundations of behavior that is going to be better welfare for that animal for the
Mhm.
rest of its life, whether you're in it or not.
Well, and I think you bring up a really good point as far as a younger animal versus an older animal, because first of all, having to counter condition is significantly more, in my opinion, significantly more difficult than starting fresh. But we have to be aware that that's what we're facing. So when you are faced with this animal and you're observing what the behavior is and you're seeing what's going on, you have to say to yourself, is this something that they've been trained prior to coming to me? Or is this a behavior that is a natural behavior? Has it been reinforced at some point? And do I need to approach it that way versus it's a brand new thing? Because it's a very different approach. It's the same science, but it's a very different approach because you can't just go, oh, we'll just, that's not, we'll just get rid of that. Well, how are we going to get rid of that? And why do we need to? Um,
Yep. Why do we need to? I just had a thought that popped into my head. Oh, every behavior serves a purpose
right.
for that animal. And, you know, kind of going back to this anthropomorphism that you and I were talking about, I
Mhm.
want to make sure you talk about what we were talking about before. But I was working with this one particular primate that every time I walked up and started the training, I think it was pure off contact. I taught him a nose target and a foot target. And before our training sessions would begin, he'd scratch his butt. And I'm looking at that behavior like that behavior of scratching his butt serves a purpose for him. What does it mean? And when I start, I'm looking for anything else in the environment that happens at the same time so I can better identify because I want to know if this animal is anticipating our training session or not.
Right.
Because it's going to make a big difference. And I have to be really careful because I'm in close proximity with this animal. And when we started, and he would scratch his butt, I thought, he's not liking something that I'm doing. What is it that I'm doing? And then as I learned the behavior of this animal more, I learned that he was anticipating the training session starting.
Mhm.
But it took me months to figure that out.
Well, and I think that's where videotaping your session comes in. And we've talked about this before, and it's so beneficial. And people, oh, but it's nothing special. I'm not doing any special training. It's not a breakthrough. It's all the time and even if you can start your video before you enter the training area so that you see what the animal's doing. What's their behavior now? What are they doing? What's going on? I come into the situation to do my training session. What's the immediate response when I come into the training session? What does this animal do when they see me approach? And then what does it look like during the training session? What's going on? And all of the pieces. And it really helps because you can take a step back and look at, oh, I just did that. Oh, I don't, maybe this arm movement isn't what I wanted to do, or it's affecting the session in some way. Because when you get into it, and I'm sure you've had this happen, when you get right into it, you're in the moment, and you're right there, and you're okay. This is my focus, and you've got your goal, and the animal's got their goal, and do they go together? And you can't always tell that when you're up close and personal.
And when you're in that moment, in that training session, like a big aversive to me when I'm training is somebody talking to me because I'm having this conversation with this animal, we're communicating, and this interruption comes in, and that you said when you're in that moment of training, sometimes you have to make split-second decisions. No, I'm not going to do this. We're moving this way now
Yeah.
because that's at that moment, the animal is telling me this is what I'm comfortable with. I've moved this way. I'm not seeing behavior from that animal that animal is completely comfortable with. I just had this happen yesterday with Bruce, the American alligator. He's a young American alligator, about 3 feet long. that we are trying our hardest to empower the hell out of. And he's becoming one of my greatest teachers. But so I'm calling the alligator out of the enclosure, and he's following a target stick and opening his mouth on cue with the verbal cue open. And the lights were on, and I'm standing directly above this alligator, which if he's in a very vulnerable position because he's right at the base of my feet and he's not used to a lot of human movement around him. So Lindsay and I were discussing, what's your next step going to be? Are you going to take a step? And I was like, I don't think I'm going to move my feet. What I'm going to start doing is just shifting my body, because I'm above him, to the left and to the right. When I shifted my body, he's standing right there. And 2 times I've made a mistake, which has thrown our training way back. But I moved my foot, and he gets nervous, and he turned around. Instead of scurrying back to his enclosure, he scurried way off to the left of it. But what happened yesterday, so I've made that mistake twice. So now that scurrying behavior is being reinforced. I do not want it. And it's also that aversive is now paired with me. So it can positively punish all this behavior that he's learned in the past being paired with me. So I'm being extremely careful at this point. But yesterday, I'm standing above him. I shifted my weight. And when I did, there was a light right above me. So all of a sudden, this light started shining in his face. And I was like, oh, crap. I quickly moved. So the light, but that's an environmental event that can impact behavior, control behavior. It's those small subtleties that we have to pay attention to.
Well, and there are things sometimes that we're not even aware of. Like I said, if you're videotaping, and I mean, you were aware of the light coming in and, being in his face. Sometimes it's you're in the middle of a training session and the phone rings, or you're in you have to, this is part of, they used to call it antecedent arrangement, so that you want to make sure that your training session is set where you have that attention, you have that, making sure you have the animal's attention, making sure that it's, you're not going to get a bunch of interruptions. There's not going to be the dog barking, and you will work around those things eventually. But when you're initially trying to train a behavior, you want to make sure it's as pure, for lack of a better term, as you can. And you try to plan for those things. They don't always happen, but you have to, when you were talking about, going in a different direction, I think it's really important that we note that training is very fluid. You have to be prepared. So you have to be prepared to be unprepared. So you've got to, if you're working on a training session and you are aware this is not going in the direction that I thought it was going to, but there's an opportunity for a different, training something different or capturing a different behavior, you have to be ready to kind of move on. Okay, I'm going to move in that direction. But when you do that, you've got to be sure that you've communicated, that you're both on the same page. It's a conversation. And if one person's talking about bananas and one person's talking about apples, you can do that, but where are you going to get with that? So you've got to make sure that you're willing to be fluid, but that you're also taking your cues from your animal.
Yeah. Does the animal understand what you're asking or getting ready to ask it to do?
Right.
And where do we go from there? What steps do we take from there? So, for example, I do have a slide showing this that I've showed several times, but this is when I was going to train this giraffe of voluntary hoof trim. Some people would go immediately to the hoof. So I started with a nose target, and a target. We could talk all about targeting. And with that, I'd love to have you, if you want, in my memberships, to have a discussion where we
Absolutely.
can dive deep into some great. Um, you and I talk very well together. But how am I gonna get to this giraffe's hoof? What are the things I need it to understand, and I need to understand from this animal before I even put that block in for its hoof? And I need a nose target. There's so much communication that can happen in understanding through a nose target. So not only am I target training him, I use the target to teach him to station.
Mhm.
Um, and then I'm trying to think of all the different things. What do I need to do in order to get to his hoof? I'm going to have to touch him
Mhm.
to turn his hoof upside down, but when I leaned up to touch him, he saw my hand coming towards his shoulder and his skin quivered, and I stopped.
Yeah.
And then I tried it on the other side and his skin quivered. So then I'm trying to understand, what does that, I haven't even touched him yet. What does that skin quiver mean? But it just happened twice when he saw me reaching for him. The only other time I see his skin quiver is when flies land on him.
Yeah.
And then his tail whips to whip the flies off. So I stood back and I actually thought about this in the shower. That's how exciting my life is.
I get my best ideas in the shower. It's okay.
I'm like, man, I really need a life when I'm in the shower. Like, oh, I got it. I got it. So I took the target stick and held it off his shoulder about this far. And instead of me touching you, you touch the target. So then I can use the target stick to start desensitizing touch, and the choice is his.
Mhm.
And then I can move the target stick.
Well, and I think too, when you talk about targeting, it's my favorite. I mean, I start, whenever I do any consult with anyone, it's like, okay, we're going to start with target, because a nose target, because I need to know that you speak my language, as an animal, that we speak the same language. And it's like walking into a foreign country where you don't speak the language and being expected to do certain things. Um, you're not, probably there are going to be visual cues maybe, but wait, we have to give them that visual cue. We need to provide that. You walk into a McDonald's in Russia and you're going to be able to see the pictures. I understand those pictures. I know what those mean. You're walking into this animal's environment, or in, their space, it's protected contact there, but you need to make sure that they're understanding what you're asking for, and that you are indeed communicating, that it's not, a reaction to get away from what you're doing. In some cases, it appears that, oh, okay, he gets what I'm asking. You've got to, again, I come back to honesty and training, and honesty in that interaction. You've got to come back to, are they indeed understanding, or did it just happen? Is it a one-off that I was lucky that that's what happened when I asked for that behavior? Does that make sense?
Yep, absolutely. And you bring up a good point, because I'm picturing myself in a McDonald's in Russia. How am I going to feel? If I step off a plane in Russia right now, I'm going to feel fear, anxiousness, nervousness, because I don't speak Russian. And I don't know how to read their signs.
Mhm.
So I'm going to have no direction. I'm going to try to seek as much direction as I can, from people's faces, from which way the traffic's going. Um, but I'm going to feel all of those. And I am mentioning this so people listening can try to better understand how the animal in front of you feels. Because if I were to step off a plane in Russia right now, I'm going to feel all of those behaviors because I don't have enough information.
And well, the other thing is, you're going to feel all those things. but I can tell you from personal experience, I was consulting in Germany and got my rental car, got on the highway, and that you will draw conclusions from your experience. And so I got on the highway, I'm driving, and there's a big sign that says 100, and then it has the circle with the line through it. And I thought, okay, you don't go over 100. Wrong. That's the minimum.
Oh
But
my
not
God.
in kilometers, but still, I was like, okay. And so I'm like putting along like a little old lady because I read it wrong. I drew from my personal experience, assumed that's what it meant, and then behaved accordingly. And, which kind of segues into you and I were talking about anthropomorphism before we came on. And I think when we're looking at behavior, a lot of times we draw on our personal experiences, our personal, and that's human nature. It's our lifescape, if you will. And we take from that and we try to put that on our animals. And there are pros and cons to anthropomorphizing. It makes you more empathetic. But at the same time, I think cockatoos are a perfect example of this. And I'm sure you've experienced this with Rocky, that a lot of people will say, oh, look he's having the best time. The crest is up. He's dancing. He's excited. He bit me. Because we put our stuff on it. So the big show of flash and all that is having fun in our world. In a cockatoo world, it could mean something very different. And we need to be aware that we're not I call it putting our stuff on them. That we need to look at the behavior with an open eye, it has to correlate to what is, you mentioned before that all behavior has a purpose. And so when we look at an animal, we want to make sure that we truly understand what that purpose is, that we're not trying to create a human purpose for it.
Yeah, because you do the animal so much injustice when you
Yeah.
do that. Let the animal be the animal that it is,
Mm-hmm.
not the animal that we want it to be.
Right.
Yeah.
And people a lot of times will say, well, I want the bird to do this. And, with companion parrots, I want the bird to do this. I want the bird to do that. I want the bird. Why? And the other piece is birds are not mammals. And a lot of times we expect mammalian behavior from them. And that's not, you might get it, but you're also, again, doing a disservice. The cuddly, snuggly piece, it's not really what they're built for. It's not really letting a bird be a bird. And people say that, and it's such a toss off kind of phrase, but I do think it's true. And I think that by really, really observing and then trying to shape a behavior, trying to capture a behavior, is a better way to go than having a whole contrived, I want them to be more like me. I want them to fit into my world.
Yep, yep, and with saying that, for some reason, I wanted to say, I've never seen a bird smile, at least not with its beak.
It's true. And I mean, I'm sure you've done them, I've done them, talks on reading bird body language, reading body language. And we do end up going, oh, well, that's that he's happy. Okay. And now we get into labels, and it's such a slippery slope. First you're looking at this animal, you're watching the behavior, you go, oh, okay, that means this, because that's what it would mean if I did it. Doesn't matter what it means if I did it, because I am a completely different species. I have a different purpose for that action. And we need to be sure that we look at what's the purpose for that animal, not for us.
Yep. And 2 examples, as long as I can remember them. This just happened the other day. Somebody that's not familiar with the center of the birds, I think it was a new volunteer, looked at Rocky. Rocky was in his enclosure and he was doing that flip.
Mhm.
on the side of his cage bar, which a lot of cockatoos I've seen do. And she's like, "Oh, look, he's so happy. He's doing these flips." And I said, "Actually, that's not happiness. That's some frustration because he sees something he wants and he can't get to it."
Mhm.
Um, oh, and another example is Rico, my umbrella cockatoo, looks sweet as pie. Don't even think about it.
And I have to, we anthropomorphize that behavior all the time. We do and so there's that next step. So not only does he look sweet, but then he looks sweet and then we fall for it. And then it becomes, he sucked me into that.
Yep.
Wait, or he was pushing my buttons. No, 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 no. You weren't reading the body language correctly. And I've done it. I'm sure you've done it. It's that, you know, he's mad at me, or he's punishing me. No, 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 he's not. He's just behaving, showing you what he needs, or creating exhibiting a behavior to communicate with you what he needs or what he wants. It's not about punishing you. It's not about being angry with you. People, I hear that a lot. I went out of town and my bird's mad at me now.
Yeah.
No, your bird's just okay. Oh, you, the bringer of food, the person with the head scratches, you're back. I can get them again. And I think it's tough. It's hard, and because we do. Okay, so we want this relationship so badly with these animals. We want to have a relationship for their good, for our good, but we create situations where we're pushing the envelope. I was at an event years ago, and there was a person who did bird demonstrations, and he and his wife had a cockatoo with them.
Oh, Robin.
Yes.
Oh, you cut out there for a
Oh,
second.
okay.
Last we heard was they had a cockatoo with them.
Okay, so they had a cockatoo, and I watched them all day long. Yeah, the wind is serious out here right now today. But so the woman walked around, and she had this cockatoo right here. And the cockatoo was, all doing this and flapping his wings. And I watched it and I watched it and I just couldn't do it anymore. I couldn't stay quiet. And I said,
Would you please stop?
I was like, stop. I said, that's not really great for that bird. And the husband said, oh, that bird loves her. And I went, a little too much. And then I don't think that's the way you want, your wife to be loved, but okay. And I said, but it's, that's sexual behavior that you're seeing, the reproductive behavior. Oh no, it's great. And there was no getting around it. And it was, the snuggle, the hold, the Velcro bird. Well, there's a reason for that. It's not just because you're wonderful. I hate to say that. And if anybody is having yeah, but yes, I am. I'm sorry, because that's not what it's about. You've seen birds in the wild, parrots in the wild, and none of them that I saw, like when I was in Australia and observing cockatoos in a park, none of them were all snugly up on one another. They were doing their own thing. They were foraging. They were just perching. Some were like resting, perching. They were aware of what was going on. But I did not see one cockatoo that was snugly with another one. But we kind of expect that. I've had people say to me, I want to get one of those snuggly birds, the white ones.
Right.
Yeah. When we were on the cruise, do you remember when we were on the cruise, Greg in the piano bar was all about, he wanted one of those white birds like Beretta had because they talked. And we were all like, oh no, 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 you don't.
Stick to your house plant, believe me.
Yeah.
I can't believe you remember his name. It was the piano player.
He comes up in my feed every now and then. He's like traveling around doing music. So.
Oh, well, we only have like 10 minutes to go. there's a couple of key points I still have written down that I'd like to talk about. Um, one of them is, I remember when I first heard, and this was from the late Dr. Patricia Anderson, told me ABA doesn't always have a great name. And I looked at her like she had 5 heads. I said, "What the hell are you talking about? How can people not?" And she's just like, "Because some people think it's manipulation." And that has always been in the back of my mind when I'm training, and I'm like, "Well, how would I do this any different without having to force the animal or use aversives?"
Yeah, and I have heard that as well, and I think, it's because I think that's where the anthropomorphizing comes in. So that we wanna believe that we can get these behaviors to happen purely on our relationship. And I this is just my theory on that, and that ABA is wonderfully structured. And I think for some people, it becomes it appears to be punishing or coercive or manipulative. I mean, choose your poison, choose your word. Um, but I think it's because, well, he doesn't get this. Why can't he just this being the reinforcer? Why can't he just get it's mean that you don't give him that just because he won't do what you want. So I think my opinion, and I did have that conversation with Patricia as well. And I think it was I think that's what people feel. I don't know. What's your take?
I think, I mean, if that's correct, I like that, if that's the way they think, because you can easily show differently. When you were saying that, it reminded me of the time when we used to train dogs. We don't train dogs anymore because there's a lot of great dog trainers out there that I just refer people to. Um, a dog came to the center for an appointment, and one of the girls that worked for me came running in, and she goes, "Oh my God, Laura, the dog is here, and the guy has a prong and a shot collar on it." And she goes, "Do you want me to tell him he has to take those off before he comes in?" And I said, "Absolutely not." I said, "Because bam, you're meeting him with an aversive, and
Right.
this guy is here to learn. He wants to know how to do better, and we start him off by telling him what he's doing wrong."
Yeah.
So I just brought him in the center, didn't try to touch the dog, didn't know if I wanted to touch the dog, because he's pairing this pain
Mhm.
with a handler. And what am I getting ready to do? Handle the dog. I don't know what, um, so I just brought him in and I said, "Do you just want to go ahead and let your dog off the leash?" And he goes, "No, because he won't come back to me." And I said, "Okay, so what's the history here? What has worked? What hasn't worked?" He goes, "I'm turning the shock collar up to as high as it can go now, and he still won't listen to me." And I said, "This is what I said." And I said, "Are you seeing this, this, and this?" And he's like, "Yes." And I said, "If you trust me, let your dog go." And I said, "What you're seeing are the scientific side effects of using aversives to control behavior. So let me show you what I would like to do, and let's just test it and see what happens." And I pretended like, let's just see what happens.
And that's the thing, and I think, people who in a lot of people who work in facilities will come and say, we'll be at a conference and they'll say, "My boss won't let me do, positive reinforcement, won't let me do any training. My boss won't let me, or the organization doesn't wanna spend the time on training." And my answer is always, here's just show them, just you can show people like that the successes you can have with positive reinforcement training. And it's quick. I'm not going to say that, it's an immediate, quick fix to anything, because we all know that those don't work, and you can have the quick fixes, but they break down.
Yep.
But if you work with an animal and if you want to prove to somebody in an organization that you're working for that this is the way to go, this is the road we should go down, just show them. I mean, I think that's the key to that. And there are sometimes that those barriers that come up. Oh, well, that's that science stuff. That's that applied behavior analysis. But it's just making them do stuff. No, it's not. And once you once you do a training session for someone and you make sure that you end on a positive note, then they're going to see, and they're going to come around to your way of thinking.
The proof is in the pudding.
Yeah.
And with that being said, there's so much more I wanted to get into, Robin. With that being said, a lot of times I tell people, and you see it, I know you see it, and I think it's why one of the main reinforcers why we continue to do what we do. In the beginning, you start working with an animal, they don't want attention, they don't want to be touched, they don't want you near them. So you identify as many positive reinforcers as you can, you pair yourself with the delivery of them, and give it time, and you'll see animals a lot of times, not all the time, but one of their highest value positive reinforcers becomes that you can stick in that list is the opportunity to engage with you.
Yeah.
The proof is in the pudding.
Definitely. Yeah, there was a lot more that we were going to talk about.
I know I have so much, but if you want, I would love to have you back on Coffee with the Critters as a guest, and I would love to have you in as a guest in one of our online memberships.
I would love to. You got to tell me how to do it, because I am tech challenged.
I'll do
I
all the
need
work.
I need a list. I need a plan. But no, I would be happy to come back. One of the things I really like about working with you is you make me think. And it's fun. There are certain people, when you get talking to them and you're talking about behavior or whatever, and they make you think, and I appreciate that. And I thank you. So,
well, you're welcome. You're welcome. And should I mention what I asked you last week?
what did you ask?
You're like, oh crap, what did you ask me?
That was a week ago. You're asking me to remember.
Well, maybe it was 2 weeks ago. I said, Robin, maybe we should do a workshop together.
I think we should.
I think we should. I think it would be fun. Maybe fly you up here to the center and maybe go around and see a couple of different species of animals, and say, let's workshop.
That would be amazing. It's, do you still have snow?
Yeah, she was actually just outside.
No, outside snow.
Oh, believe it or not, we just got snow last night. I woke up this morning. I was like, what is this?
We got snow, and now it's rain and wind. But yeah, no, I would love to work with you. I think that would be so much fun. And it's like I said, it's when we were talking before we started, we need to do more of that face to face. And I think, I'd love to work with the folks that are working with you. So
yeah. I think it'd be great. Let's start.
Mark is sending me. He's like, that's an amazing idea. He's like, yes, you should go. It's been a long winter.
Yeah. Besides, we can come up with new creative ideas as well.
Yeah. And you, the other thing is too, that, I love behavior, but my passion is absolutely enrichment and how we can get behavior using enrichment. And so, yeah, I think it would be fun.
Yeah, I think it'd be a lot of fun. I think it's, I see it's coming. So if people want to get a hold of you, Robin, they can reach you here. Is this a website? Is this your website?
.equid.com is our online store, and there's a contact on there. Also on the leatherelves.net. We've got, there's a little bit more information about enrichment.
Oh,
And, you know,
she must be really windy. Um, am I the only one? You
be
cut
back.
out for a second. Okay. I was
There we
like,
go.
must be really windy. Oh, and it's gonna, oh, just when we're trying to end, Robin, you're cutting out a lot. So, this is how you can get in touch with Robin on either of these websites. Sorry, I'm just trying to fill in while you're cutting out, Robin. And it looks like, I guess if she's gonna, yeah,
I'm
Mark
back.
said, yes, you are.
Okay.
Mark said it's storming there. So
It
we
just,
can,
yeah, as I was saying, just anybody can reach out. I'm happy to answer questions. If I don't get back to you right away, please be patient. But no, we definitely, you know, moving forward, we'll come up with some fun stuff.
yes, yes.
Um,
Okay, well, thank you for coming on. I'm
Thank
just gonna
you.
mention a couple more slides. So if you like the work that we do, and maybe we'd have Robin in a future applied animal behavior workshop. Um, let's see. You can find this on our website, theanimalbehaviorcenter.com. You can also find all the other work that we do. We also have a day with a trainer where people can come up individually or as a small group together and train with me by my side with numerous different animals for 1, 2, 3 days. And we have our online memberships, foundations for people that have animals at home. We have our advanced for people that work in educational organizations with numerous different species of animal. And with that being said, I want to say thank you, Robin. Thank you, everybody that has attended. We had a great attendance today. And if you want to find out more about the work that either one of us do, we've listed the websites for you. So thanks,
Great.
Robin.
Take care. Thank you.